Some moments come softly. They settle into your life like mist, clinging to your shoulders before you ever realize you're cold. But the moment that changed my life, the moment that cracked everything I thought I knew, it didn't whisper. It screamed. It screamed in the grinding sound of mail, in the wild spinning of my tires, in the suffocating terror that crawled up my throat when my foot slammed the brake pedal and it sank soft, weightless, useless. I still remember the road stretching out in front of me, shimmering in the afternoon sun. I remember the taste of panic on my tongue, bitter and metallic. I remember the jerk of the steering wheel as I tried to stop the car, feeling the whole world tilt with fear. And I remember the moment the car finally came to a stop, inches from the back of a delivery truck. When the truth settled into my bones like ice, brakes don't just stop working like that. Not without a reason, not without intervention. I sat there, hands trembling on the wheel, breath shaking in and out of my chest. The air smelled like hot rubber and dust, and in that hot, suffocating silence, one single thought rose in my mind. A thought I didn't want, a thought I refused, at first, to believe. Dad. What if someone did this to me? And worse, what if I already knew who? Before fear entered my life wearing the face of my own husband, things looked normal, ordinary in that soft, comfortable, everyday way. The kind of life you don't realize you depend on until it slips out from under you. I'm a quiet woman by nature. I've always believed in building small joys, warm kitchens, folded laundry, simple suppers, soft lights in the evening. I work mornings at a daycare, where I spend my days wiping little noses, tying tiny shoelaces, and watching small hands paint big dreams. And Michael was steady, or so I thought. He was a mechanic, a man who worked with his hands, who came home smelling faintly of engine oil and cheap coffee from the shop machine. He used to walk through the door at exactly 6:15 p.m., kiss the top of my head, and say the same thing every day. Smells good in here. Even on the nights when dinner was nothing but boxed macaroni or reheated soup, he said it like a ritual, which, to me, it was. His softness, his steadiness, his predictability. We had been married for 10 years, a full decade of routines, inside jokes, late-night conversations, and quiet corners of comfort. Nothing dramatic, nothing extraordinary. Just a life built piece by piece. And like every Thursday, his sister Lily would come by. Lily, the kind of woman who made rooms brighter just by being in them. She always brought pastries from a bakery near her apartment, cinnamon rolls warm enough to melt, or strawberry turnovers flaky enough to crumble at a touch. Families need sweetness tucked into small places, she always said as she opened the pastry box. She adored Michael, but she also watched him with a kind of careful tenderness, the way someone watches a clock that's running a little too fast. I didn't understand it then, but I do now. Life doesn't fall apart in one big moment. It unravels thread by thread. The first thread snapped 2 months before the brake incident. Michael started coming home late, not just 10 minutes late or 20 hours. At first, he blamed work. Busy day at the shop, he'd say, kicking off his boots. People don't know how to take care of their cars. But his eyes wouldn't meet mine when he said it. And when he thought I wasn't looking, I'd catch him staring at his phone, thumb hovering over the screen, breath held in his chest, face tight, like he was waiting for something he didn't want me to see. Then there was the night I heard him in the garage. I'd been cooking dinner, browning chicken in a skillet, the scent of lemon and rosemary filling the kitchen when I heard his voice through the door that led to the garage. Sharp, low, angry. Michael never raised his voice. He was a calm man by nature, quiet, controlled. So when I heard that edge, the kind that slices, my hands froze on the wooden spoon. I told you I'd handle it, he said through clenched teeth. Just stop calling me. A pause, a long one. No, he said. I said I'll fix it. Trust me. Those words echoed in my head for days. Fix it, before she finds out. The garage went silent after that. When Michael came inside, he smelled of sweat and frustration. Everything okay? I asked. Car trouble, he answered too quickly. Some guy from work. But his hand shook when he reached for a glass of water. And the look in his eyes, dark, restless, haunted, told me he was lying. Over the next few weeks, his behavior changed in small, unsettling ways. He slept less, ate less, smiled almost not at all. He flinched when I walked into a room unexpectedly, like he'd been caught doing something wrong. And sometimes late at night, I'd wake up and find him sitting on the edge of the bed, staring into the darkness, his hands clasped tightly together like he was praying or bargaining with something only he could see. I'd whisper his name. He'd turn slowly, like resurfacing from a deep place. "Go back to sleep," he'd say softly. But I couldn't. Not when his eyes looked like storm clouds. Not when he felt like a stranger living beside me. Then Lily began to notice. She'd visit on her usual Thursdays, bringing pastries and stories and breezy laughter. But gradually, her smiles softened. Her eyes searched my face. Her questions became more pointed. "You look tired," she'd say gently, brushing my arm. "Michael's been quiet lately," she'd comment, her voice measured. "Everything okay between you two?" I'd always answer the same way. "Just stress. Just work." She didn't push. But the concern in her eyes deepened week by week. One afternoon, as she stood to leave, she paused at the door. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" she asked quietly. Her voice soft, almost trembling, stayed with me long after she drove away. At the time, I thought she was just being thoughtful, warm, caring. But looking back, I think she already saw the storm forming around us. I think she sensed something dark creeping into Michael, something neither of us had a name for yet. The morning my brakes failed felt like any other ordinary day. I packed lunches for the daycare kids, grabbed my purse, kissed Michael on the cheek. He stiffened a little, but I ignored it, told myself I was imagining things. The sun was bright, the air warm, the world peaceful. Until it wasn't. Until the moment my foot hit the brake and nothing happened. Not a slow response. Not a delayed stop, nothing. Just a loose, sinking pedal that gave under my foot like air. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as the intersection rushed toward me, the world narrowing to a single point of panic. My hands clenched the wheel so tightly that my knuckles went white. By nothing short of luck, a small incline in the road saved me. My car slowed just enough for me to swerve into the side of an empty parking lot, tires screeching, heart pounding so violently I felt it in my throat. I sat there shaking, breath shallow, palms slick with sweat. I should have called Michael. That would have been the normal thing to do. But I didn't. I couldn't, because the fear clawing through my chest whispered something I wasn't ready to face yet. What if this wasn't a malfunction? What if someone loosened those brakes, on purpose, and the only person who touched my car besides me was? I pushed the thought away. But thoughts like that, they don't stay pushed away for long. When I finally pulled myself together enough to drive, very slowly, very carefully, to a small mechanic shop across town, the clock on my dashboard read 3:07 p.m., but it could have been any time. My mind was so loud it buried every second beneath it. I remember the man who walked out to greet me. He was older, with silver gray hair, and a face lined in that soft way people's faces line when they've lived kindly. His name tag said Emerson. "You look shaken, ma'am," he said, peering at me over his glasses. "What happened?" "My brakes," I whispered. They didn't work." His eyebrows rose, but not in that surprised, careless way. In a careful way. A way that said he understood the weight of what I'd just told him. "Let me take a look," he said. I sat on a metal bench outside the shop. The air smelled like gasoline and iron and faint cigarette smoke wafting from somewhere behind the building. I clasped my hands together, but they shook so badly that I tucked them under my thighs. I watched him crouch beside my car, tools in hand, inspecting the underside with practiced movement. The faint clinks and clicks of metal filled the hot air. Then he froze. Not dramatically, not with a gasp, just a stillness, professional, heavy, deliberate. He stayed like that for too long, long enough for dread to gather in my stomach like stones. When he stood up, he wiped his hands on his rag. His expression changed. Concern, and something else, regret. He walked toward me slowly, like someone approaching a frightened animal. "Ma'am," he said gently, "did someone work on this car recently?" My throat tightened. "Why?" He exhaled, steadying himself. "Your brake line didn't fail. It was cut." I stared at him. "Cut?" He nodded, voice somber, clean, deliberate. Not an accident. The words hit me like cold water. "You sure?" My voice cracked. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I've been doing this 41 years. I know a cut line when I see one." The world blurred around me. The sky seemed too bright, the air too thin. He rested a hand on my shoulder. "Whoever did this wanted your brakes to fail." I felt the ground tilt. Wanted. "Do you know who might have had access to your car?" he asked. My mouth was dry, my tongue felt heavy. Who had access? Only me. And I swallowed hard. "My husband," I whispered. "I didn't drive home. Emerson insisted an employee give me a ride while they repaired the brake line." I sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead, barely breathing. The young man driving, barely 20, kept glancing at me nervously. But he didn't speak, and I was grateful. My thoughts were noise enough. By the time I stepped onto my front porch, my legs felt like sandbags. The house looked the same: blue shutters, cracked flower pot on the steps, the faint smell of jasmine drifting from the neighbor's yard, but nothing felt the same. I unlocked the door slowly. Silence greeted me. Michael wasn't home yet, but his presence lingered in the house like humidity, thick, heavy, close. I sank onto the couch, clutching my purse in my lap. The fabric pressed into my palm, grounding me. I needed grounding, because real fear isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the pounding in your chest when everything else goes still. It's the feeling of being watched, even when you're alone. I must have sat there for nearly an hour before a soft knock broke my trance. When I opened the door, Lily stood there, hair pulled into a messy knot, eyes wide too wide. She wasn't her usual self. Her shoulders were tense, her breath shallow. "You look awful," she blurted. Then she shook her head. I mean, are you okay?" I didn't answer. I stepped aside, letting her in. She walked straight to the kitchen the way she always did. But today, she didn't reach for a glass or open the pastry box she usually brought. She just turned to face me. "What's going on?" she asked softly. "Something's wrong. I can feel it." I sank into a chair at the table. "Lily, I don't know how to say this." She sat across from me, placing her hands palm up on the table. "Start anywhere." I looked into her eyes, kind, honest, and now frightened. My brakes were cut, I whispered. She went still, completely still, like a statue, like her heartbeat had stopped. "What?" She breathed. "The mechanic said someone cut the line. And Michael, he's the only one who touched the car." She covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes quickly filling with tears. "Oh my God," she whispered. I thought so. I hoped I was wrong. But I stared at her, my pulse quickening. "You thought so?" "Lily, what do you know?" She hesitated. Then she took a shuddering breath and began. "3 days ago," Lily said, voice trembling, "I came by to drop off some things. You weren't home. Michael was in the garage." She swallowed hard. "And he was doing something to your car." My blood went cold. "What was he doing?" I asked. Bending over the hood, working with tools. I asked him what he was fixing. She shook her head. He snapped at me. Told me to mind my business. I remembered Michael's recent temper. The way he flinched at small things. The sudden secrecy. "He's been hiding something," I whispered. Lily nodded, biting her lip. "But there's more," she said. My stomach twisted. "What?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I think Michael's in trouble." "Serious trouble," I swallowed. "Tell me." She looked around the room, as if afraid the walls were listening. "He's been borrowing money," she said. "Big money, from people who don't loan it kindly." My hands trembled in my lap. "How do you know?" She closed her eyes for a second, steadying herself. "Last week he came to my place. Panicked. Sweating. Wild-eyed. He asked me if I had anything at all saved up. He said he just needed a small help to get out of something. He wouldn't explain." A lump formed in my throat, and when I told him I didn't have enough, she continued, tears gathering in her lashes. "He said something that scared me." "What did he say?" She exhaled shakily. "He said, 'There's always another way. I'll figure it out.'" Fear pricked at every nerve in my body. Another way. The words felt like poison. Before I could respond, before I could make sense of anything Lily had told me, we heard the sound. The garage door opening, slow, heavy, groaning. Both of us froze. Lily's face drained of color. "He's home," she whispered. My pulse thundered in my ears. I stood quickly. "Go," I urged. "Go out the back door. He can't know you are here." Lily hesitated, fear flashing across her face, but she nodded and slipped quietly toward the back, her footsteps barely making a sound. The door closed behind her just as Michael stepped into the kitchen. He looked tired, exhausted. His face tight, sweat on his forehead, oil stains on his shirt. But his eyes were the worst part. Dark, unsettled. Like a storm rolling across a field. "You're home early," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. I forced a smile. Just a quiet day. He glanced around, noticing 2 cups on the counter. "Someone here?" My heartbeat stumbled. "Lily dropped by," I said casually. "Just for a minute." "Oh." He nodded slowly, but his jaw tightened. What'd she want? Just to check in. Something flickered behind his eyes, something unreadable. He walked to the sink, washed his hands slowly, deliberately, then turned to face me. You look jumpy, he said. I laughed softly, trying to steady myself. Just tired. He stepped closer. Are you sure? He murmured. His tone was soft, but the softness wasn't comforting. It was controlled. Studied, my skin prickled. Yes, I said. He nodded, but his gaze lingered on me. Too long, too intensely. Then he brushed past me and walked to the living room, collapsing onto the couch. But even with his back turned, even in that moment of silence, I felt watched, hunted. That night, after dinner, after small talk that felt like stepping on glass, after a quietness that swallowed the whole house, I lay in bed pretending to sleep. Michael was beside me, breathing steady, too steady. At some point in the dark, I felt him sit up. Slowly, quietly. He sat on the edge of the bed. I could see his silhouette in the faint glow from the hallway, his shoulders hunched, his head bowed. I held my breath. He didn't move for a long time. Then he whispered. Not to me. To himself. I don't have a choice. My blood ran cold. I have to fix this. He ran a hand through his hair. She'll be fine, he whispered. It'll be quick. My pulse roared in my ears. He wasn't talking about repairing anything. He was talking about me. He was reasoning with himself. Justifying, convincing. I didn't sleep at all. I lay there frozen in fear while the man who vowed to love me whispered plans to save himself at the cost of my life. By sunrise, I'd made a decision I never thought I'd make. I had to leave, hide, tell someone, protect myself. But I couldn't do it alone. There was only one person who knew enough to help. Only one person who believed me. Lily. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and prepared to make the call that would change everything. The next morning, I woke to a buzzing phone and a flurry of notifications. My story, Michael's actions, the brake sabotage, the police intervention had reached more people than I ever imagined. Family members I hadn't spoken to in years called, their voices a mixture of concern, disbelief, and anger. Is it true? My brother asked, voice trembling. I can't believe he would do something like that, my mother said, tears in her voice. My God, I had no idea. Came my father's quiet, pained acknowledgement. Even neighbors and friends who weren't particularly close reached out, offering support, meals, rides, anything they could. The gravity of what had happened, how close I had come to disaster, was beginning to sink in, not just for me, but for everyone who had ever seen Michael as the charming, dependable man I once thought he was. Family dynamics shifted almost immediately. Some relatives were angry at Michael, clearly. Others seemed unsure of where to place their loyalty. Lily's parents, surprisingly, were fully supportive. They had seen some signs in their own family dynamics that worried them, and they weren't blind to her courage. Some people show their true colors when it's too late, her mother said gently. Lily did the right thing. She protected someone who needed her. Meanwhile, Michael's siblings, apart from Lily, reacted differently. Some blamed me subtly, questioning why I hadn't noticed earlier. Others avoided the subject entirely, unsure how to process the betrayal from someone they had trusted themselves. Through it all, I learned that trust is fragile and public scrutiny can bring out both the best and worst in people. The legal process moved faster than I expected. With the mechanics documentation, Lily's careful collection of threats, and eyewitness accounts from friends and neighbors, the case against Michael was airtight. He was charged with attempted harm, reckless endangerment, and multiple other counts related to tampering with my car. The judge issued a strict restraining order, preventing him from contacting me or Lily in any way. I didn't feel satisfaction or vengeance. I felt relief. Justice was being done, and the threat to my life was neutralized. When Michael's face appeared in court, I noticed something profound. He wasn't the man I married. He was small, almost pitiful in his desperation, stripped of the charm and arrogance that had once masked his true intentions. Lily held my hand tightly as the verdict was read. I whispered a silent thank you to her. She had been the anchor throughout this storm. Without her, none of this would have been possible. Once the immediate danger passed, I had to confront something harder, rebuilding trust in my own instincts, in my judgment, in the world. I started small. I returned to routines I had taken for granted before the betrayal. Morning coffee on the porch, walks in the park, calls to friends. Each step felt heavy at first, but with Lily by my side, I learned to breathe, again to trust my own decisions and to accept the kindness of others. Counseling helped too. I didn't want to blame myself, but I needed someone to help me process the fear, the shock, the anger, and the grief of realizing that someone you love can plan to hurt you. Lily and I grew closer than I could have imagined. The bond between us was no longer just sister-in-law and sister-in-law. It had transformed into something deeper, a relationship forged in fire, built on trust, loyalty, and courage. We laughed, cried, and reflected together. Sometimes, late at night, we would sit quietly in her living room, sipping tea, and just exist in each other's presence. "You know," she said one evening, eyes distant, "I never imagined I'd be doing something like this, protecting someone like this, but I would do it again. Every time." I reached across the table and took her hand. "And I will be here always, not just because of what you did, but because of who you are." There was a warmth in her gaze, a sense of family beyond blood, and I realized that sometimes family isn't just the people you're born into, it's the people who show up for you when it matters most. Through this entire ordeal, I learned lessons I will carry for the rest of my life. Trust your instincts. I had felt unease before, but doubt clouded it. When something feels off, pay attention. Courage comes in unexpected forms. Lily was my savior in ways I never imagined. The courage to act, not just react, can save lives. Life is unpredictable, but resilience is key. Fear may shake you, but your strength, sometimes drawn from others, can anchor you. Family and love are not always conventional. Bonds can form from shared trials, not just bloodlines. Even now, months later, I feel a quiet sense of gratitude. Gratitude for my life, for the people who truly care, and for the chance to rebuild a life free of fear. I bought a new car after the incident, but more importantly, I invested in my sense of independence and self-reliance. I set boundaries, became more assertive, and surrounded myself with people who uplift and protect me. Lily and I started volunteering together at a local women's support group, helping those in dangerous relationships find resources and escape plans. It felt empowering to turn our trauma into a lifeline for others. And slowly, the trauma transformed into purpose. Pain became wisdom. Fear became vigilance. Betrayal became a lesson in recognizing true courage when it appears. If I could speak to myself before all of this happened, I'd say, don't ignore the small signs. Protect your instincts, seek help when danger appears, and never underestimate the courage of someone who loves you. Trust may break, but it can also be rebuilt with the right people by your side. And above all, I would say, life is too precious to be wasted on fear. There is always light waiting at the end of the darkest tunnel, sometimes in the form of an unexpected ally. Months had passed since Michael's arrest, and life began to settle into a new rhythm. At first, it felt strange, almost unreal, to wake up and feel safe, to drive my car without that sinking fear in my chest, to leave the house knowing I was truly in control of my own world. The neighborhood was quieter now, but in a comforting way. I'd never realized how much the stress and suspicion had weighed on me until the calm returned. Even ordinary things, the smell of morning coffee, the rustle of leaves in the wind, the soft hum of the dishwasher, felt like little gifts I had ignored before. And though the shadow of betrayal would always linger somewhere in my memory, it no longer controlled my heart. One of the most important lessons from this ordeal was the value of relationships rooted in integrity. I repaired my relationship with my own family, who had been caught in the ripple effect of Michael's deception. We learned to communicate more openly, to speak the truths we were afraid of, and to support each other without judgment. Lily and I became closer than ever. Our bond had been forged in crisis, but it endured in peace. We shared meals, stories, and even laughter that had been absent for so long. She reminded me that family isn't only about shared history, it's about who shows up when it counts, who protects and uplifts you without hesitation. Even Michael's absence became a lesson. Sometimes, the people who leave or betray your trust create space for genuine connections to grow. Healing is rarely linear. Some nights, I would lie awake, remembering the fear, replaying Michael's betrayal, wondering if I had truly been safe. But each day, the memories softened. The fear gave way to understanding. The anger transformed into resolve, and the heartbreak into compassion for myself, for the people who had unknowingly stood by him. And even, in a strange way, for Michael himself. I saw therapy not as a punishment for weakness, but as an investment in strength. Each session reminded me that vulnerability is not a flaw, it's a doorway to courage. Sharing my story, examining my choices, and allowing myself to feel without judgment became the scaffolding on which I rebuilt my sense of self. In the months following the events, Lily and I began volunteering at a local women's support center. We shared our story carefully, thoughtfully with those navigating abusive or dangerous relationships. It amazed me how a single act of courage, Lily's decision to intervene, could ripple outward, inspiring others to protect themselves, seek help, and reclaim their lives. It became clear to me that while we cannot control the actions of those who betray us, we can choose how we respond, how we grow, and how we help others. If I were to sum up everything this journey taught me, it would be these truths. Trust yourself first. Your instincts are your inner compass. Courage comes in small, decisive acts. Lily didn't hesitate when she saw danger. Neither should we when we recognize it. Family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes it's defined by loyalty, protection, and love in action. Healing is intentional. Choosing to rebuild, to forgive yourself, and to grow stronger is an act of courage, just as vital as confronting betrayal. Purpose can rise from pain. Even the darkest chapters of life can illuminate paths for others, if we allow our experiences to teach and guide. Through these lessons, I learned that life's deepest betrayals don't have to define us, they can refine us. It was a quiet Saturday morning when I truly felt the weight lift. I sat on the porch, the sun warming my face, Lily beside me with her sketchpad in hand. Birds called in the trees, the smell of jasmine drifting from the garden, the distant hum of the street carrying soft comfort. "I can't believe how far we've come," she said softly, looking up from her drawing. I smiled, feeling the calm seep deep into my bones. Neither can I. But we did, and I wouldn't trade this as for anything. For the first time in months, I felt an unshakable sense of gratitude. Gratitude for my safety, for Lily's courage, for the lessons learned, and for the life ahead, bright, unafraid, and full of possibility. Life is unpredictable. People we trust can hurt us in ways we never imagined. And yet, within that uncertainty lies the chance to grow, to find strength we didn't know we had, and to discover allies in the most unexpected places. I share this story not to frighten, but to remind you of your own resilience. There may be betrayal ahead, mistakes to confront, fear to face, but you are never without courage, nor without hope. So I ask you, gently, have you ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, and yet found a way to rise above it? Who in your life has shown you unexpected courage when you needed it most? Take a moment to reflect, and remember, the people who truly love you like Lily will act when action is needed, and sometimes their bravery will become your lifeline. If this story touched you, and you want to hear more stories of human courage, family, and resilience, please subscribe, share, and support. Let these stories remind us all, no matter how dark the path, there is light waiting sometimes in the most unexpected person, the most surprising ally, and even in the quiet moments of our own hearts.